So Minnesota, looking back to last year very briefly, they went 9-8, finished one game above 500, and their season was marred by injuries and quarterback issues, specifically the quarterback issues. J.J. McCarthy was hurt a lot, and he was bad when he played. And people that stepped in weren't much better. We got Carson Wentz for a couple weeks. He didn't look great. Max Brosmer, undrafted, I believe, or he's 7th round.
I think he's undrafted. He was undrafted.
Okay, that's what I thought. He played. He looked horrible. And so, honestly, the fact they won 9 games is pretty impressive considering that. And really quickly, I'll hand out some MVPs for last year. Just the team MVP. I'm going to go and give it to Justin Jefferson. Not a good year from his standards, but still cracked 1,000 yards despite the quarterback issues I just mentioned. Had a pretty good season. I initially wanted to give it to a defender, so I'd be interested to see if there's a defender you would want to give it to because, really, their defense put in a lot of work for this team to win games. But it felt like it was more just a really good unit and not like, oh, wow, there's a Micah Parsons on this team or a Myles Garrett on this team or, Pat Surtain on this team. It was just kind of like, at least looking at the numbers and even like, thinking back to when I watched them play, there was no one that was like, oh, man, they just were locked in week and week out. So I wanted to give it to Jay Jettas.
Yeah, I think numbers-wise is the very fair point. They were very spread across. 4 guys with 6 or more sacks this year. 5 guys with 10 or more quarterback hits this year. Tackles are spread across the board. They had 3 different DBs with 2 interceptions. I think Justin Jefferson is a very fair pick for the MVP. They did not get kind of what they wanted out of their running game, and T.J. Hockenson didn't have a great year. Obviously, I think they kind of wanted J.J. McCarthy, 9, to be the MVP. If there's which I'm curious to see how that'll pan out with the sphere of sports as our light flickers at us. I hope that doesn't look bad on video.
I'm going to go see if I can get it to stop. It doesn't look like it's making a difference there, but just in case, I'm going to go check. You keep talking.
I'm curious to see if some of we know one, if Chromie ends up showing up today, or if Chromie watches this back, I'd love to hear his opinion on, do people take the J.J. McCarthy went 6-4 last year as a way of describing that he played well when he, in reality, was 11 touchdowns and 12 picks for 163 yards per game. That's 37 yards below 200, so meaning he averaged a Bryce Young game every time he played. Now, he had some bright moments.
Sure.
The win at Detroit, obviously the win at the start of the year at Chicago, and those, I think, are more like building blocks for them going forward he played pretty well in division when he played his divisional opponents. And that even includes technically a win the final week of the year against Green Bay when Green Bay sat all their starters.
Clayton Tune was their quarterback. So
yeah, I wonder how many people will take the J.J. McCarthy defense, Minnesota fans or Michigan fans or just NFL people, in terms of trying to build this team going forward. That he was 6-4 this year. He didn't play that bad. It's kind of a similar argument that people are trying to have with Bryce Young, in that he didn't play that bad. He won the division.
Yeah.
No, he played bad all year.
They just still happened to win the division.
Yeah, and so much of the fact that JJ was drafted so high and Bryce was the number 1 overall pick, and they were great in college, and JJ won a national championship and whatnot. They want to continue to hold on to him and see a way brighter future than a lot of realistic fans do. So, JJ's only started 1 year. It will be him going into year 3, but I would push back on pretty much all of those people that just like I'm pushing back on people who are trying to defend Bryce Young right now.
Yeah. And we'll circle back around to that when we kind of wrap it up with the 2026 goal. He'll be a big part of that, I imagine. And then for 2025 unsung, Jalen Redmond, gave it to him, defensive tackle. 6 sacks. He was one of the guys you mentioned that was kind of right in that cluster. Very impactful in the run game. Defensive tackles in general are pretty unheralded unless you're like Aaron Donald or somebody that just like clearly takes it to the next level. But they typically don't rack up stats. They don't make the wow plays. But he played a ton of snaps in the middle, was always available. and just impactful week in, week out. So I give it to him.
Yeah, the defensive tackles, you only remember like the ones with the cool names or the big personalities, like B.J. Raji of the Green Bay Packers, or like Poona Ford is someone that comes to mind right now. I think that's a fair shout for unsung hero. I thought the way Dallas Turner played this year was really good as well. I mean, he's a former first-round pick, and it was year 2 for him, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, year 2 for him. He had 8 sacks this year, led the team in sacks, but he's more of a known commodity. He also played at Sanders' favorite college, Alabama. So
if he was here, he'd give a big old roll tide, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Of course he would.
Always. Okay, moving on more towards next season. No big coaching changes. Top guys all stay the same in terms of head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Now, unless I'm mistaken, they did get rid of the general manager. He got let go after a couple not great drafts in a row. Maybe people are upset about the J.J. McCarthy thing, not keeping Sam Darnold, but he's out the door, and so that position will have to be filled. And so who knows what the philosophy in-house changes with the new guy or how that changes. I'm not going to speak on it too much because we don't know who the new guy is yet, and what that change is going to be or how that's going to affect things. But if you have anything on that, you're welcome to add it in. If not, I'll keep moving.
No, it kind of felt like that was a consensus opinion in-house.
Yeah.
That he was to be moved on from.
Yep. Just simply hadn't drafted well enough, and that's kind of the biggest thing for the GM, among other issues. But, yeah. Talking about the draft, going into this year's draft, they have the 18th overall pick, and they have some big needs, DB being one of them. I would like to see them get some interior offensive line help. I think that would be needed, partially just because it's not the best group, but also injuries. Their offensive line sustained a lot of injuries last year, so even if you got a guy, their tackles are set, but you got a guy that could bounce out to tackle if one of those guys get hurt again, something like that. They also need running back really bad, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of the Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones combo. They're not going to take that in the first round with that 18th overall pick. Never say never, but I'm going to say they're not. There's just no shot. There's no one there for them to take. So they'll have to address that later or in free agency. A couple guys I see them taking within that 18 range, and Avion Terrell, corner out of Clemson. He's good. Maybe like Jermod McCoy's there, someone like that. If they do just want to beef up their front seven, because I could see them doing that as well. Maybe you go like a Hakeem Messidor. I feel like that's a little high. There's the defensive tackle from Ohio State, Kaden McDonald. So I'm thinking if they could do something like that. C.J. Allen from Georgia, if they like him. They have a couple different options there. But I personally would go corner, whether it's Avion Terrell, Jermod McCoy, whoever ends up falling there. Mansour Delane will almost definitely be off the board. Jerron McCoy will probably be off the board too, so maybe it is just kind of Avion Terrell. But what are your thoughts in terms of what they should do with the 18th overall pick?
I'm fine with corner, and I think it'll be a good fit. I would be surprised if Mansour Delane had fallen that far, but I don't think the separation between him, Gerard McCoy, and Avion Terrell is that drastic to where drafting one of those guys at 18 is a bad value pick. I do think they should address running back as well, and running back can be addressed at any point in the draft. Now, this year's class is not necessarily elite. There's really Jeremiah Love, who people view as the best prospect in the draft. Then there's his counterpart, Jadarian Price, out of Notre Dame, and then you have the 2 Penn State running backs. Outside of that, there's really not like one that pops off for you. But then again, if you draft a guy who's just productive, give him the right snaps, and have better health of the offensive line, I do think really anybody at running back can play well. Kyle Monangai within division, and someone I'll talk about later as well, is a 7th-round pick, and he had a good year for Chicago. So I do think addressing that at some point is definitely fair. I think they expected more out of Aaron Jones, obviously, with his veteran nature and him being a captain on the team, but also Jordan Mason was a pretty big free agent signing for them, given what he did last year with San Francisco, and he wasn't a 1,000-yard rusher. I think they kind of expected him to be that paired along with Aaron Jones. A lot of fantasy nerds especially expected Jordan Mason to have a better year than the year he had. So I'm fine with corner in that slot at 18. I think it would be a good value. It's not too high, it's not too low, and
Yeah.
you should be able to get, at worst, I think, your second favorite guy. I'd be kind of surprised if all three, if not just two of those guys are gone before then.
If all three are gone, I agree. I'd be pretty shocked, and at that point you just pivot because I don't think it's a dire enough need for them. Unless maybe they just love like a Brandon Cisse from South Carolina or someone like that. But there's no point to like
It
try
also
and reach
means
or
someone
anything
had
like that.
fallen at that point.
That as well. So that's a good point. Moving on, free agency cap situation, not good. They're $40 million over the cap. Not at all where you want to be. And you can toss some names out there potentially, but like looking at potential cut targets, most of the highest paid guys, it's like, well, I don't really want to cut that guy. Maybe, you restructure to save some money, kick the can down the road. But I'm also not sure if they're going to want to do that because currently they're sitting they're $40 million under the cap or $50 million under the cap in 2027. So it's like maybe you just don't make any big moves this season, and this is already looking ahead, and save that cap space going into next offseason, and that's when you really try and make splashy moves, get good players. You can get good players for cheap, like get stars, get studs, and this year you just focus on maybe some depth signings, moving around a little bit of money, but nothing too crazy. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I don't know NFL well enough to know if that's like a legit team building strategy of like, oh, we're gonna wait because we're next year, like they do that a lot in the NBA, for example, of like next year's our year, or if in the NFL it's kind of like now we're just gonna keep going for it while we're in this spot.
I mean, I think if the Vikings were to do that, it's like a full submission. Like
Sure.
it's just we are admitting that we made the wrong move with Sam Darnold, made the wrong move with drafting J.J. McCarthy so high, and now we are just going to go into a rebuild. And I don't think, Justin Jefferson
They're not ready to do that.
deserves that. I
Yeah.
don't think that fan base thinks they're in that spot. I mean, they went. I think a lot of people will spin it that Minnesota fans have every right to spin it that we were 9-8, and we were flipping terrible at quarterback all year, outside of 2 J.J. McCarthy games and 2 Carson Wentz games. We had 4 good quarterback games this year, and we were 9-8.
Yeah, and some of those good quarterback games were just like decent.
Yeah.
Which, considering what came before them, or they were sandwiched between horrible games, it did make them look great. But it's not like those 4 games were Josh Allen level or anything like that. So I think that's fair. Does that make you think then that they will look to bring in a quarterback, at least to compete with JJ, or because I feel like in my eyes, I don't see a way where they don't give JJ another year, or
Absolutely.
at least going into the preseason or off season, look to give him another year. Maybe it's a situation the guy they bring in just like looks so good that they end up giving him the starting job. But it's not like we're fixing to see what we're seeing with the Colts today, where it's like it looks like Anthony Richardson's going to be cut or traded because like they're just ready to move on. So do you think they'll bring in somebody else?
I'll be shocked if they don't.
Yeah.
Because Kevin McConnell has done so well with many backup quarterbacks. You think of like the astronaut Joshua Dobbs when he had that little 2 or 3 week run with Minnesota, where he comes in and leads a comeback against Atlanta. That one went well. Carson Wentz was putting his body through hell for them this year, and he played fine in his 5 games. Obviously, Sam Darnold was going to be, it felt like, the backup to J.J. McCarthy, and then he turned into a 4,000-plus yard passer. So I would be shocked if they didn't bring in a guy. Also, given J.J.'s injury history already, he's also not done a great job of protecting himself through games. I mean, if your young quarterback is going to miss 7 games, which he missed 7 games this year, that's almost half of the games in a season. I think you need to find some kind of piece there. So I would be shocked if they didn't bring in another quarterback, especially with the way Max Brosmer played. Carson Wentz is a free agent, so it's not like he's staying in-house. I do think they'd bring in somebody.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins would be kind of a fun one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's necessarily something he wants, but I know he loved his time in Minnesota, so maybe that's a way you could spin it to him that, hey, you're probably going to start half the games for us, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully not. But if not, you're going to get to mentor J.J. McCarthy and get to move back to Minnesota, a place that
Sure.
you love.
Yeah, I should clarify a little bit. Obviously, they're going to add a quarterback. Like, someone has to be the backup. I more just mean someone where the fans are actually maybe like a little excited, like, oh, okay, and not someone where you sign and it's like, oh, if that's our backup, like, we better pray our starter never gets hurt because this season's just fully over.
Kirk Cousins might be that option then.
Yeah.
Of the guys that are available. I know, it's been it was teased at least for a couple years of Aaron Rodgers coming to Minnesota. I think that ship has kind of sailed.
Agreed.
And it seems like he's a Steeler or he's retired. So Kirk would be that kind of guy. Because of their cap space, I don't think they can convince a Malik Willis or someone else to come to Minnesota.
Especially like a Malik Willis is definitely going to get an opportunity to start somewhere. Either like Marcus Mariota is a free agent. He had a pretty solid season with Washington. I don't know what he's looking for on the market, but Kirk Cousins would be very fun for sure. And so just wrapping it up then, 2026 goal. And I have the kind of two-parter, figure out 9, like we just talked about, and we've talked about a ton during this primer because it's just easily the most important thing for this team is can JJ give you anything where to show you that he's the guy moving forward? Because personally, I mean, and this isn't like a hot take or anything, if he has a season he just had again, they're moving on. And even if he's just slightly better, like you probably are still moving on. But at least that's clarity, and they can at least, okay, now this is a sunk cost. We made a mistake, but like now it's time to move on. Or can he actually grow a lot, play a lot better, perform statistically a lot better? They make the playoffs. Maybe they go on a little run. That defense should still be really good. And then in the future you go into 2020. The 2027 season, and you're like, okay, this is our guy. Like, we're ready to roll. He's still not making a ton of money. Let's go try and win. So that's the biggest thing for me. But then it's also with the way the defense is structured and some of the offensive weapons you have, you got to get back into the playoffs at the same time. You won 13 games the year before, and then you dropped to 9. Shout out 9. I think they're ready to be back in the playoffs. I don't think they'll really. JJ would get scapegoated if they don't make the playoffs, but I think other heads would roll in that building if they don't make the playoffs again as well.
Yeah, and for them to keep their defensive coordinator Brian Flores as well, and to be able to have him another year with that defense, I think they kind of. A lot of the NFL views Kevin O'Connell as a winner. That's pretty much all he's done is win, except when he's gotten to the postseason. He hasn't got over that hump yet. So I do think realistic goal is fair in figuring out 9. And I do think that they feel like they should be in-house. They feel like they should be in the postseason next year. Will they be there? I don't know. NFC North is going to play a brutal schedule every year because they have to play themselves 6 times, which is the inverse of 9. Shout out 9. But they also are going to have a tough schedule on top of that. They finished in 3rd, and it was kind of, maybe it's a bad year to finish in 3rd because they're going to play the Commanders, who we expect to rebound next year.
Please.
Indianapolis, who was the hottest team in the NFL until the Sauce Gardner trade, and then San Francisco and the 49ers. They also play the AFC East and the NFC South next year, so there's some potential wins in there, like I'd assume you beat the Jets and the Dolphins next year, and maybe pick your 2 or 3 in the NFC South. But outside of that, it feels like they got an uphill climb because Chicago was amazing this year. Green Bay seems to be relatively consistent. Detroit, had a tough year, but they had one of the best offenses in the league, and that doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. So it'll be an uphill climb. They may end up being forced into that rebuild. Like, I do think they'll be a trendy pick to have a really poor season next year.
Yeah,
I don't think they'll be on, JP's 0-17 watch.
Yeah,
but they could be close. They could be like a 5-win team next year, especially if JJ is going to continue to play the way that he played this year.